upwards of 90% of all doctor visits today, primary care visits, are for stress-related issues. The cold that doesn't go away because of the stress you're under and it turns into bronchitis. The sprained ankle because you're preoccupied worrying about some financial issue and you weren't paying attention to where you're going. All these things that play out because of the stresses in our life. So healthcare cost issues are one of the reasons we've looked into this. And then there's this 78 million number that scares all the employers these days. The number of us who are thinking of retiring or not, but are clearly aging regardless, and the burden that's putting on the workforce. And now the third bullet is that there's a massive amount of evidence linking what we've known probably intuitively for many years, how stress affects our cognitive function, our health, our heart, and everything else. But now there's so much evidence that's hitting places like JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, saying workforce stress is as bad for our heart as smoking and high cholesterol. That's JAMA now saying that. So there's tons of evidence. And so we've taken this very seriously and tried to figure out ways to deal with this, let alone the last point that I've been already referring to, that simply the stress of aging, how that affects our quality of life, etc. And so our technology, the one that Bud has referred to, here's the irony. We've been research people for 20 years, and now we're known as gadget people. And this was the gadget that won last year's Last Gadget Standing. We were extremely excited when this all happened, and the timing was wonderful because we had just done the panel, Michele and I and a few others, with Susan. And as the panel was ending, it was announced that we had won. It was like, ah! And I think, and our cheerleader here, I think, actually ended up buying one. But so one of the reasons we're interested in this particular space is the issue of caregivers. The 44 million is the number I've heard, although I guess I heard somebody else say 68 million, so it's a huge number, whatever it is. And there's no question that the pure stress on the caregiver themselves, the family caregiver, is massive. Those of you interested, we've got a little booklet at the back table. I hope there's some left, specifically addressing how the work we've done in the research and the technique creation and the technology creation can help the family caregiver. So pick that up if you're interested in it. But one of the things that we have found in this little device, which looks kind of innocuous and looks kind of toy-like, is actually a heart monitor, and actually is able to track in very refined ways the impact stress is having on our heart in real time. But it's not a medical device, so it's a feedback tool. So what you learn through our process, through the techniques that we have that are bundled with the device, is a way to catch the stress as it's happening and change the physiological response in a way that relieves not only the stress, but slows the progression of whatever the stress might be doing to our aging process, in case you're missing the point of all this. So, we've done lots of research around how this can impact cognitive function. All the jokes that we're all having, as we age. I'm 56, and my daughter reminds me of that on a regular basis. And, Dad, are you sure you want to be dressing like that? And that kind of comment. But the impact that how many of us in the room have noticed, especially those of us boomers or older, have noticed simple things that we're now sure are happening because of aging, like those memory things. God, I can't think of it. And now we're calling it a senior moment. When we were 30, it was just, we're too busy, we can't think of it. But now we're sure it's because we're aging. So all that anxiety that builds from that is partly what we're trying to address with our technology. This is a way, through the techniques that we teach, through this technology, to have, in those moments of high anxiety, pressure, overwhelm, to stop that in its tracks, change the physiological response, and produce far better outcomes. So part of what we did since last year, since winning the award, it was fantastic PR for us. Hundreds of blog mentions, many national and international outlets covered the fact that this, in fact, in the, I think, 9 or 10 years of Last Gadget Standing, the first time a health product had actually won. So we thought that was significant at a time when the economy was driving everybody crazy and making everybody nervous. Here, the voters said a health-oriented technology product was the most interesting gadget among all the ones that were submitted. So, how we're trying to build awareness of this is certainly there's a lot of us who are facing this issue, but it's not fun and sexy, to Michele's point. It's just real world. And so we've tried to do that with a lot of awareness campaigns. Addressing the caregiver market has been a big part of what we're trying to do. We do a lot of work in kind of underserved communities. So we have a lot of work with the VA, for example. So we do a lot of work with about 50 VA and U.S. Army military hospitals, preparing soldiers who have returned. And this, how do you think, why this relates to aging? The stress that soldiers have been under accelerates the aging process massively, doesn't it? And things that they took for granted a year or 2 years ago cannot do anymore. Things that shouldn't have broken down for 30, 40, 50 years simple cognitive tasks suddenly are gone. So we do a lot of work in that area because it's important to the world and to those people that have served. So part of how we're trying to kind of address this whole issue is through creative marketing. Amazon is our biggest retail or e-tailer, I should say, and trying to do more creative marketing with them. But I think the bottom line thing is for me is that Susan made a comment about the nuisances of growing old, and sometimes these nuisances are incredibly agonizing, aren't they? Incredibly anxiety-producing, incredibly expensive at times. I had to go through a medical procedure recently, and I was amazed how little my medical plan, thank you, Anthem Blue Cross, I'm going to name you, covered, how little they covered, let alone how little they've covered for what my daughter's gone through. So there's all these issues, and our company is saying we can take charge. There are ways to be proactive that are measurable, that are repeatable, that can be found in science, and can make a huge difference to the quality of people's life. So I think there's one more slide, but it's just the awards.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just showing that the caregiver aspect of what we're trying to do is a big deal. So we won a caregiver award this year as well. So I'll stop.
Good deal. All right. I have an eternal Carlos Santana solo going into my ear from headphones. And I guess now that I have that, we should take some headphones and sort of cure some of my problems. George Dennis, president of TVEars, has done a phenomenal job of distribution and market education. George, why don't you tell them a little bit about that?
Good afternoon. Am I on? Hello? Yeah. Mom, are you out there? What can I add to that great discussion? I think to sum it up for all of us, we're getting older, but we're not going down easy, are we?
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Our challenge as product innovators and developers is to try to get this great technology in front of the consumers, and it's been a real challenge. If I ask the question, what's more important to help, an 84-year-old person in a nursing home hear Matlock and put a smile on her face, or help a 35-year-old stockbroker in New York watch Iron Man in 3D? I think we'd all agree, put a smile on someone's face so they can hear that TV again. Retailers, as Bud pointed out, and Michele has had frustration with, and all of us, don't agree with us. They'd rather have the 35-year-old stockbroker watch Iron Man in 3D. That's where they're focused. So we've been all bumping up against trying to get these great technologies in the hands of people who want them. That's what Michele saw at our booths, is people are coming by going, wow, oh my goodness, I could use this. My mom could use this. This could improve lives. For staying young, it's all about attitude, right? It's all about your mentality. Keeping our brains in shape is one of the best things I've seen out on the floor today, as well as our bodies. And part of keeping our brains in shape and our attitudes is to be willing to, and particularly speaking to men here, be willing to let yourself use these great items and devices to make your life easier. Don't be stubborn like we all can be and not reach and use an amplified product or an eyeglass or whatever it might be. We're lucky to live in this age where this stuff's available. Use it and keep skiing, keep doing your dancing, keep engaged in life. I warn us all not to get isolated. I see this a lot with hearing loss. People get isolated and they're not talking as much and they're not hearing as well. Well, you don't use it, you lose it. So my little segue just on staying young and forever young, I think it's just fighting attitude and utilizing the devices that are around you to keep engaged in life. You ever notice people who live the longest have the least stress and have the most friends and family around them, are always talking, my grandma lived until she was 96, and I think it's just because she was always engaged in life. I'm lucky enough to have an incredible PR firm, and my PR firm, they're not here. No, it's Allison right here. If you ever need a great PR person, I want to point out Allison. And she did something that leads into an interesting story. Is coming into CES here, we have, I thought I was going to look over there and see a picture of my television.